I am so excited. You are in for a special treat today. We have the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen from Dune at HappyLifeStudios with us today. Thanks for joining us, Baron. Or should I call you Vladimir? No? Vlad? Hark?
Do you know what it means if you fail?
No.
Tighten your grip, Raven.
Okay.
Or feel mine on your neck.
All right, this sounds a little extreme. Was it something that I said? Because I'm kind of getting the feeling that you don't really want to be here.
What do you think is next?
Well, I was hoping to ask you and the Duke Atreides some questions. Maybe about being happy.
For hundreds of years, we've traded blood for blood.
Am I picking up some tension between you and the Duke here?
No more.
You know revenge is like poison, right?
Your son is dead. Your concubine is dead. Tonight, the house of Atreides falls.
All right, this is getting a little intense.
And your bloodline ends forever.
I'd like to talk to the Duke. Duke, is there anything that you would like to say to that? I mean, it appears the Duke doesn't seem much in of a position to talk right now. Maybe I should just fill in for him? What do you think of that?
What did you say?
I'm going to show you how to operate in the spirit.
This is HappyLifeStudios.
This message is for you. This message is for you. This message is singular to you. It's not for anybody else. It's not hard to get. It's not hard to get. It's not hard to understand.
Hey, are you happy?
Now that's a great question.
Does your sunset high? Does your sunset high?
Welcome to HappyLifeStudios.
Hey, are you happy? If you're not, then why? If you're not, then why?
We're here to help your life be happier.
What's up, Happy Lifer? Thanks for joining us today. I am so happy you did. And I want to apologize for that intro there. I thought the Baron, I didn't realize he was going to be so hostile, but I guess I should have expected that, seeing the movie. Anyway, I apologize for that. I'm not exactly sure what to do. Do I thank Baron Vladimir Harkonnen for joining us today or not? He's definitely, you could tell, he is definitely a bad dude. And if you've seen the movies, Dune 1 and 2, the latest ones, you would probably agree with me that he's he's like a slug of a man. I mean, he looks like a slug. He moves like a slug. When he rises up, he's got this like long tail like a slug, and he moves like a slug. He moves really slow, really sluggish. By all appearances, he probably smelled like a slug too, because everything about him just says slug. I mean, he was lazy like a slug. He had machines carry him everywhere he went, kind of like in the movie WALL-E. So he was kind of like a slug man. But as evil and huge as this slug Harkonnen is, there's another slug out there that is even more deadly, believe it or not. And it's, well, yeah, blue.
Yo, listen up, here's the story about a little guy that lives in a blue world. And I'm blue, I've dee, I've died, 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 I've dee, I've died.
The only thing Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is missing is, yep, that's it, blue. Actually, the slug I'm talking about is called, you guessed it, the Blue Sea Slug. But it's also called a Blue Sea Dragon, which I think is more appropriate when you consider its lifestyle. Check out some of these things about the Blue Sea Dragon and see if they don't remind you of Vladimir Harkonnen here. First of all, the blue sea slugs, to live, they live by feeding off of other sea creatures. Literally. And not just any sea creatures. The blue slug feeds off of the venomous ones, like the Portuguese man-o'-war. That's what the blue slug feeds off of. They will literally devour an entire man-o'-war. And when this blue sea slug produces its offspring, they will take their eggs and lay them in the carcass of the creature that they just devoured. The man-o'-war that can actually kill a human, their venom doesn't even affect these little blue sea slugs. Truth is, they actually store the venom from these venomous creatures that they devour, that they feed off of. They store the venom inside them, and then they will use that venom on other creatures that come near them. See? Dragon. I mean, sea dragon. So why are they called sea slugs if they're so violent like the Baron? Well, it's because, believe it or not, these sea slugs are gorgeous. They are beautiful. And this makes it difficult for humans. Because when people see them, like if they get washed up on the beach, they just want to pick them up. Because they have these beautiful, deep blue, electric blue colors that combine in this very unique shape. That's on the one side. On the other side, they have this really pretty silver side. And another reason they might be called slugs, I guess, would be their size. Yeah, their size. Get this, what I just explained to you, that slug, that creature I just described, is only an inch long, which is what makes it so cute.
This is what they look like.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
If you were to see one of these on the beach, what would you do?
I'd try to pick it up.
Exactly. Many people, when they see these, they want to pick them up and they want to take them and put them in their aquariums at home. Keep them as pets. But that is highly discouraged against because these blue sea slugs are so venomous, so dangerous, they will kill everything that's in the aquarium. In fact, many people say they look like a Pokemon. I don't know if you've ever played that game before, but Pokemon actually stands for Pocket Monster. Pokemon Pocket Monster. But when you say it, it actually sounds more like Pocket Demon, Pokemon, which is kind of what these guys are. I mean, you thought the Vladimir Harkonnen was bad, the Baron was bad. These little 1-inch creatures are just brutal. They're pocket monsters. They're little pocket demons. And interestingly enough, the word Pokemon didn't originate from the game Pokemon. It was actually a Cornish dialect word from the 1800s meaning stupid or clumsy, which is also very fitting to this episode, as you'll soon find out. So what in the world, or ocean, do blue sea slugs have to do with living a happy life? Well, other than the fact that they are beautiful, they don't. But they remind us of another Pokemon, another pocket monster, another demon, another Baron Vladimir Harkonnen that does. One of the definitions of a slug, according to the Urban Dictionary, is a slug, usually on Snapchat or Twitter, is when you're talking crap. They used a different word there for that. When you're talking crap about someone, but you do not direct or say it towards that person. A subliminal message. End quote. And that kind of sounds like some forms of bitterness or revenge, if you ask me. And that's what blue slugs are. They are like bitterness. In that, the pain that is left alone or ignored inside of us will end up becoming a slug that feeds off of us. It will devour us. Blue sea slugs are like revenge, in that they feed off of that pain, like the ocean counterparts that eat the venom of other venomous creatures like the man of war, and then use that very same venom on anything else that comes near them. In fact, they say that oftentimes the venom is even more powerful than it was in the original venomous creature. When it goes through this little 1-inch slug, the poison can even be more potent. I think I heard in one of the things I was looking at, 3 to 5 times more potent, I think it said, than the man of war in this little 1-inch blue slug. It reminds me of what Nelson Mandela said. Coming out of his prison cell, when he was released from prison, as he was finally coming out of his prison cell into freedom, they asked him if he was, bitter, if he was going to get revenge, or if he was resentful towards the people that got him put in prison. His response was, resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Yeah, that's what revenge is like. That's why these blue slugs are like revenge, that they feed off that pain that we haven't dealt with, that bitterness. And then they store that venom inside of us. And then it gets released on anything else or anyone else that comes near us. That pain that we don't deal with becomes venom that we store and hold close to us and then unleash it on those that happen to come around us, often on those that are the closest to us. Which is why, without going into detail here, basically The blue sea slug's bodies are made in such a way that when they reproduce, they're able to do it staying a distance away from each other, leaving them at least somewhat protected, because they will, just like revenge or bitterness, they will destroy their own kind. And if you look up that word, bitterness, where it came from, that word bitterness actually came from the mid-14th century. It was a Middle English word which means bitterness of taste or smell, also anguish, grief, misery. The online etymology dictionary also said that the Old English biter, B-I-T-E-R, meaning having a harsh taste, sharp, cutting, angry, full of animosity, cruel. Source also of Old English biten, which means to bite. There's only one T in that word. Isn't that interesting? Bitterness is really bite-erness. It bites. It's got a bite to it. So let's take a look at how the blue slug and bitterness, or biteness, compare with each other, and you'll see how the name blue dragon is so much more appropriate than blue slug. But blue slug is kind of fitting because that's how we tend to think of bitterness or revenge or rage or resentment. It's more of a slug. It's not a big deal. It's slow and it moves slowly. And sometimes rage happens real quick, but oftentimes bitterness and revenge, you hold it and it just moves slow. It's more like a slug. It's not a big deal. A dragon's a big deal. But if it's just called a slug, it's not a big deal. If we see bitterness as a dragon, we're going to deal with it, right? We don't want that inside of us. But if we just see it as a blue slug instead, then it's not much of a big deal. You know, it's not a big deal. I'm just angry because I got hurt. They were jerks. Who would do something like that to someone? So on and so forth. Things that we say to just make it feel like it's a slug and not a dragon. So bitterness and revenge might feel like slugs, and they might only be an inch long, but they bite and they burn like dragons. So here's how they compare. Here's how bitterness and revenge compare against the blue sea slug. First of all, like I said, they feed off other creatures. They even feed off their own kind, and that is exactly what revenge does. It feeds off that pain. It feeds off that hurt. It feeds off other creatures and will even destroy their own kind or even those that are close to them. Blue sea slugs are venomous, poisonous. So is bitterness. So is revenge. Like Nelson Mandela said, revenge is like drinking poison and then expecting it to kill the person that hurt us. It doesn't work that way. Blue slugs, like any other slug, any other animal, they birth more blue slugs. And they do it in the carcasses of the creatures they just devoured. That's what happens with bitterness. Bitterness will give birth to more bitterness. Oftentimes, it gives birth in the very person or the very pain or the very act, the thing that it just devoured. It just keeps on going. It's a vicious, venomous cycle. In the same way that the blue slug doesn't die of the venom, it only stores it. Bitterness doesn't destroy itself either. Bitterness doesn't die of the venom. Wouldn't that be great? Because then bitterness will just take care of itself. But bitterness seems to, it lives off the venom. It stores the venom. Bitterness stores all that hurt. And it just becomes more venomous. Our lives become more venomous. Blue sea slugs are cute and adorable. And they make people want to hold them and save them as pets. After all, they're just slugs, right? Just like bitterness. It can appear beautiful. It can feel so good when you want to get revenge on somebody. When you want to be angry at somebody. When you want to store that and not deal with it. It can feel so good that we want to keep it as a pet. We have our special brain aquarium or a special heart aquarium that we want to take that bitterness, that pain, that revenge, that resentment, and we want to store it inside of our mind. We don't ever want to forget it. We keep going back to it. We want to store it inside of our heart. Our brain and heart aquariums. Now, all other sea slugs dwell down deep in the bottom of the ocean. But the blue slug hangs out on the surface. They go wherever the waves take them. You know why? Because they're full of gas. Literally. They've got like their stomach, whatever, they fill themselves up with air or with gas, and that's how they float. And so when they float, they just go wherever the waves take them. And bitterness does that too. It'll just go wherever it can be taken. You ever start a conversation with somebody and you were angry or whatever? Next thing you know, that conversation went to a place that you're like, how in the world did we get here? How come I feel so icky inside? How come I feel so angry? Because that's what bitterness will do. That's what revenge will do. It will go wherever the waves take it. And really what bitterness is and rage is, it's just a bunch of gas that keeps us afloat. That every wave that comes by, we get tossed around by every wave that comes by because it's full of a bunch of gas. That's how it is. When we have bitterness or revenge inside of us, it's just a bunch of hot air. It's just a bunch of gas that will cause us to be blown about by any wave that comes along our path. Blue sea slugs blend in with their surroundings. You can't see them. Because on top they got this beautiful blue colors on top. So when the birds are looking down from above, they can't see them. They blend in. And from below, the bottom is silver. So it looks like the sky from down below. Which leads me into the next point. Really, their top is their bottom, and their bottom is really their top. They float upside down. Bitterness and revenge, it's an upside down way of thinking. If you really think it through logically, it does not make sense to drink poison and expect them to feel the pain. Bitterness, it's an upside down way of thinking and needs to be flipped back over. Blue slugs are small, like we said. They grow to like an inch and a half at the most. And it's the little things in life that get us. Like an oak tree from an acorn, bitterness can grow to enormous size from something that started out as so small. A look, a statement. The venom that a blue slug stores is actually enough to do quite a bit of damage to humans, let alone kill creatures in the ocean. But they can actually kill a human too. That's how powerful it can get. But oftentimes the symptoms are less. But one of the symptoms that you get when you get the venom off of a blue sea slug is it causes disorientation. And when we allow bitterness to bite us, that's exactly what happens. We become disoriented. We forget who we are or where we are. Or we forget that the other person is just that, another person, another human. A blue sea slug's teeth are so sharp that once they latch on to the creature they are going to devour, not even the rough seas can dislodge them once that they are bitten in. Biterness. And you don't fight biterness with more biterness. In other words, you don't fight bitterness with more biting. You don't fight anger with more anger. You don't fight resentment, revenge, bitterness. You don't fight it violently. Like Aunt May said about revenge in Spider-Man 3.
Uncle Ben meant the world to us, but he wouldn't want us living 1 second with revenge in our hearts. It's like a poison. It can take you over. Before you know it, turn us into something ugly.
This is something that not a lot of people are talking about, that I have found. Yet I see all sorts of stuff talking about riling people up. It just makes me angry, honestly, that people rile other people up. That platforms and social media and the news and people trying to sell things. They love to use fear. They love to get people riled up, but that's not how you handle bitterness and revenge and a lot of negative emotions. You really don't handle it that way. You don't handle it violently. So how do you get rid of the blue slug? Well, that's good news. Getting rid of the blue slug is simple. I didn't say easy, but it is simple. Here are 2 ways to defeat the blue slug. Ready? Simple. Don't touch it, talk to it. Don't touch it, talk to it. Experts will tell you in no uncertain terms to leave it alone. If you see a blue sea slug, no matter how good it looks, no matter how cute it looks, when you see pictures of it, you think, there's no way that thing could be what we're talking about. But it is. And oftentimes revenge and bitterness, resentment, rage, a lot of those things, they come along and they just feel like it just feels good to hold it in, to get angry and to get, but it's not what it looks like. You're supposed to leave it alone. The experts say that you can look at it, take pictures of it. Just don't touch it. And the same is true with our pain. Go there. Visit that pain. Look at it. Take a picture of it. Analyze why you're in pain, why you're hurt, why you're angry. Look at that. Take pictures of it for next time it tries to show up in your life and you go, wait a minute, I remember what this looks like. I'm talking about obviously a mental picture here, right? But next time that happens, you go like, wait a minute, I recognize this little sucker. I recognize this little inch-long Baron Vladimir Harkonnen trying to take over and live in my mind, live in my heart, and I'm not going to allow it to happen. So don't touch it. Deal with it, but don't touch it. Now that might sound counterintuitive. When I say deal with it, don't touch it, what I mean is deal with your pain, but don't touch the bitterness. Don't let the bite, the bitterness, the revenge sink its teeth into you so it can feed on you. Deal with it so that it has no hold on you anymore. Whether you need professional help with that, whether you need other people to help you with that, whatever it takes. But deal with it. That way it will have no more hold on you. And when you feel the hold coming back, when you feel that bite of bitterness coming on you, when you sense that bite, deal with it again. That doesn't mean you're a failure because they come back. They'll keep coming back. But when they do, deal with it again and say, wait a minute, I recognize what this is. I remember this mental picture. Don't ignore it or hide it, but deal with it. Deal with it. Don't touch it. Don't ignore or hide it. So don't touch it. And secondly, talk to it. Don't touch it, talk to it. Actually, I should say speak to it, not talk to it. Because there's a difference, I think, between speak and talk. The Cambridge Dictionary says that talk refers to a conversation. You can have a conversation with your pain. That's okay. That's basically what it means to deal with it, to face that pain. But when it comes to the blue slug, when it comes to the bitterness, to the revenge, the rage, that's no longer talk, it's a speak. Don't give it any voice. You can talk to your pain, have conversation with your pain, figure out why you're in pain. But when that pain turns into the bite, turns into bitterness, when you want to hold and not deal with it, and then all of a sudden it turns into bitterness and revenge, at that point, you need to speak to it. No talking here. Speak to it. Don't give it any voice or place to talk back to you. And that's actually how Duke defeated the Baron. And here's a spoiler alert if you haven't seen Dune yet. But that's exactly how the Duke defeated the Baron. When the Baron Vladimir Slug had the Duke of Atreides on his back in seeming defeat, the Duke beat the Baron by what came out of his mouth. I won't go into all the details of that in case you haven't seen the movie. But the Baron gets defeated in the same way that the blue slug, in the same way that revenge or bitterness will be defeated by what comes out of our mouth. There's an old saying, an ancient saying, it's been around for thousands of years. It's actually in the Bible. And it says this, it says, it's not what goes into a man's mouth that corrupts or defiles him, but what comes out of a person's mouth that corrupts them, that defiles them. There's so much talk and emphasis on diet these days and what we eat these days. If only there was as much attention given to what comes out of our mouths as well, not just on what goes into them. I mean, for me to eat healthy but speak deadly, that doesn't make much sense to me. To try to get myself physically in shape but mentally be out of shape because of I'm putting the right things in my mouth, but the wrong things are coming out of my mouth. That's what defiles the happy in us. That's what corrupts the happiness in us. That's what allows that sea slug, that bitterness, that revenge to get its bite in, that even the rough seas will not shake it off. Now, don't get me wrong here. I believe diet and exercise and healthy living is of utmost importance. But what I'm saying here is that language should be included in that conversation. Diet, exercise, healthy living, healthy language. That's also a part of having a healthy, happy life. To be honest, I'd rather be fat and happy than in shape and miserable. I would rather be fat and forgiving than in shape and bitter, than being fit and being miserable. And that is exactly what the blue slug will do. No matter what our physical shape is, it will attach itself to us, and it will eat away. It will feed off our very selves. And the cool part about when the Baron was defeated by the Duke, it's what the Duke said. He looked the Baron in the eye, and he didn't talk to the Baron. He spoke to the Baron. He spoke and said, "Here I am. Here I remain." And that's what we should do when revenge or bitterness or whatever the blue slug might be. Is to look it in the eye and speak to it. Not talk to it. Speak to it. Don't let it talk back. You're in charge, not it. No matter what it tries to tell you, revenge tries to tell you couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I was just so angry. That's not true. You are in charge. Don't let that blue slug lie to you. Don't let revenge or bitterness lie to you. You are in charge, not it. So you speak to it and you let it know that you are still here. Here I am and here I remain. Think about that thing that has hurt you. Focus on it and say those words with me. Here I am and here I remain. I will not allow you to corrupt me with your poison. You're not going to feed off my pain and cause me to use that venom on others. No, here I am. I am not bitterness. I am not revenge. I am not vengeful. Here I am and here I will remain. End of discussion. Because remember, the blue slug will consume the creature's own venom and then use it on others. Revenge, like bitterness, knows what our venom is. That's why it likes to come back. That's why we're like, I thought I took care of this. It knows our weak spot. It knows what our venom is. It knows what our weak spots are and will try like anything to feed off of those if we allow it to. And then get us to consume it as well. Then pretty soon it consumes us. So, like all the experts say, don't touch it. Speak to it.
Make someone happy. Make just one someone happy. And you will be happy too.
Again, I apologize for the Baron's bad behavior. And I also apologize for all the blue slugs out there and their bad behavior. Don't touch them. Speak to him. Remember, life isn't perfect. Sometimes we get hurt, but that doesn't mean we can't be happy.
StevoHays.
Don't touch it. Speak to it.